Welcome to the Checkered Shorts Podcast, a podcast of three fraternity brothers reconnected by their love of IndyCar. Join us for grid-rival IndyCar fantasy talk, predictions for upcoming races, and reactions to race day results and all things IndyCar. Let's go racing! Hey, welcome back to Checkered Shorts Podcast, Episode 7. We're going to hit on some more IndyCar 101. We're looking at lesson number 2. Last week, we talked about the different types of tracks, how they affect racing. We're going to talk about the schedule. IndyCar certainly has a unique schedule, especially here at the start of the season. So we're going to dive into that information, and we're going to bring these to you once a week. So those of you that want to learn about IndyCar, become a fan, and dive in head first, you're going to want to check us out so you can get the basics at least, right? We're going to keep it to where you can show up at the track and be a guy who knows what's going on. So all right, let's go talk about our schedule. All right, so we're 1 week in.
Hold on. Can we say Happy St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, hey, yeah. Cheers.
Come on. Cheers.
Happy Thanksgiving or Happy St. Patrick's Day, fellas.
Thank you for everybody tuning in. We appreciate all the listeners, followers, clickers, share and like. But no, Keith, great intro. It's the old question of why do they start there? When do they go here? I think St. Pete's had the schedule in St. Pete. I mean, it's contractual. Mm-hmm. For the longest time, I can't name a number, but I think it's good. Obviously, it's in the South. It makes everybody a little bit more eager to want to go down there. Hell, even the three of us talked about, let's go spring break in St. Pete and see if our wives will go with us. But I mean, it's a good starter. There's obviously some things coming up, changing. Dallas news is awesome. And then, for us Oval fans, it's a little bit on the back end, which is okay. But no, it's that's my intro to it. Dinwiddie, throw in your 2 cents. What do you got?
Yeah, I think we just thought this would be a good time to talk about this for those of us that are fairly new to the sport, or those of you that are out there that are that way. As we leave St. Pete, behind a couple weeks ago, and that being a street course, and as we talked about last time, those are temporary circuits that take place on the city streets and airport runways, places like that. And then this week we're moving to Thermal, which is a permanent road course in California. So we wanted to kind of highlight that. And what you'll find at the beginning of the season, Pat, like you said, is we'll see a lot of those street and road courses. We went from a street course at St. Pete. We'll go to Thermal this week. Then we'll bounce back at Long Beach. And then we'll jump back to Barber and the Indy Grand Prix. So if you're an Oval fan, and I think the three of us kind of tend to be Oval fans, I know traditionally that's what I think of when I think of IndyCar as IndyCar was, not kart,
correct.
The split time.
Right.
We find those short ovals toward the end of the season and or more to the end of the season. We talked about as we were getting ready for today, the reason for that. There aren't a lot of short ovals that are made for IndyCar in the South. And so St. Pete is a really good spot when you're going to have a race at the end of February or early March, because the weather is pretty predictable. I mean, you could have rain, but that's a possibility in IndyCar that it's not, when you're talking about a street course or road course. You can't do that on an oval, obviously, but you can do that. And so I think that's what's made St. Pete that piece. As you mentioned, it's contractual. The teams and the drivers love it, from what I understand, because it really is a party atmosphere. And those that have attended, we haven't attended, so we don't know that atmosphere as a fan. But we hear those that are there really enjoy the event. Watching it from home, we question, and Pat, you and Keith kind of wanted to talk about, Fox now with their new slogan for IndyCar. So you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Keith. You dive in real quick.
Yeah, no. So all along I've been questioning. You guys kind of clued me in on the fact that contractually we go to St. Pete first. And for me, it was a matter of the buildup from Fox, fastest sport, fastest racing. And then you go to a street course that really has very few straightaways to where they can get to that speed. And then a huge lull between St. Pete and the other races. And so you're like, okay, that is not the ideal. If I were mixing up the ingredients to bake the perfect, let's get some new eyeballs on the sport.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the perfect recipe for that. So, but it does sound like, from everything I've heard, is St. Pete as a city is also an excellent host. It sounds like it's big for the city. It sounds like the city puts on a heck of an event. And you could tell that there was a lot of energy down there as an opener.
Yeah, I mean, all the podcasts I listen to, Pruitt, Hinch and Rossi, Kevin and Cal, or Kurt, Gavin. I mean, they said they killed it. Ratings are, I think it was 1.6 million, which is tremendous from like at 900,000 type of ratings. I think the biggest rating other than the 500 since 2011 for IndyCar. So obviously, hopefully a little bit is that because just people are watching a little bit more, but the majority of that's Fox, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm pumping gas, and Alex Pillow, no kidding, is on the TV of that fastest racing on earth.
Yeah.
So
I think Pat, I could jump in here. That whole line Fox is promoting fastest racing on earth. And Keith, to connect to your St. Pete connection there, I think the reason they say that is because Indy on street and road courses hits limits of speed that even Formula One doesn't get to.
Right.
Like even on street and road courses, Formula One's amazing. Like it truly is. I don't want to bash any other style of racing. Yep. They don't have the length of straightaways, but they're not getting to the top speeds that IndyCar are. NASCAR is obviously not getting to those speeds on their street and road courses. So even at street and road courses, IndyCar is still the fastest. And when we talk about racing in general, like we get there.
Bob Tasca.
Oh, talk about Bobby for a minute.
I was gonna say I wasn't gonna bash on any other racing, but might as well pile on NHRA if they're going to cry like a bunch of bitches.
Click on the link, Bob. I mean, everybody knows drag racing is the quickest ever. He's not even in top fuel, by the way, which is faster than his little funny car. It's circuit racing. Obviously, we know. I mean, it's totally different racing. We get it. Like. And to make fun of Fox, who you're on, you're like people are like that was a little. I don't know. I thought it was a little chintzy, but yes, Bob. We know that you guys run 300 plus miles an hour for 4 or 5 seconds, and then IndyCar is not as fast. So, but no. Yeah, I mean, here we go into the schedule after this. Yes, you could say, was it the best? What do we have next? It's thermal, right? And then we do have another road, and then we do have another road, and then actually we have 3 roads after that. So ovals don't come for a little bit.
I guess the big question is: do you consider that racing? Therein lies the question. The fastest racing. Drivers having to hit those corners and hitting those marks as opposed to, going through the gears, hitting top speed. The performance of the engine is super impressive. Obviously, those drivers have skill, but it's 2 totally different type of competitive environments.
100%.
I think Tony Stewart would give you a pretty good argument on that, Keith, and he's driven it all, and he's pretty impressed with what he's doing now in his NHRA car. So. I don't want to take away that that's not racing because it is, but I think Pat hit it. A lot of the people have mentioned it too. It's the fastest circuit racing on the planet. So.
And what's really cool about the NHRA and the drag racing is those engines are getting rebuilt after every run. Like it's under immense not that Indy cars aren't, but there's nothing like it. I mean, they're rebuilding these engines after every run. Pretty crazy engineering, mechanics, stuff like that too. So, yeah, no.
So if you don't mind me jumping in and asking this question, like when we think about that schedule being very street and road course heavy through the spring, obviously May we pause and hit that little oddball that we call here at 16th and Georgetown and basically a rectangle. They call it oval racing, but and then we kind of go back to road and street for a little bit, and then we, as you said, the majority of the end of the. So who does that favor? Like when you think drivers in the series, like, is it good to get off to a good start? We know guys like Pillow, Rosenquist,
Howard,
Kirkwood, those guys are good on road and street courses. Is it good for them to get off to a good start to the season, or a guy like Joseph who, if he can be solid in the first half of the season, and then now, he's got his short ovals sitting in front of him?
Keith, take it away if you want.
I think it's pretty good for Joseph if he can podium all the way through the spring, because then after that, look out, because he's going to pull podiums and victories in some of those short oval.
Yeah. But
I feel.
Go ahead.
I feel. When Texas was at the beginning of the season, it was awesome. Like, especially, I think Fox missed it a little bit, which I get the schedule, but I think there's less chances and less risk in ovals, just out of the natural turns, twists, and stuff of accidents happening. But no, that's a good question. But I think it has to. A Pillow, a Power, even though erect, it has to. Those guys, I think, are a little bit on the advantage of starting this way.
It is interesting because, Keith, I want, my first thought is to believe and say the same thing you did, but then we've got Alex Pillow, who hasn't been strong on ovals, who's won 3 of the last 4 championships. So obviously something has benefited him in that setup.
Yeah. Well, and that's why Dixon was so pissed after that interview. They gave one to Pillow. Pillow should have finished 4th or 5th. They literally, it was. Everybody raced and Pillow earned it, but you can't give that guy that race. After what you think he's probably going to keep doing, the stars were not aligned for Pillow to win that race, and lo and behold, it was Kevin Lee who was like, he was interviewing. He's like, he was pissed. He's like, because the race, he just won the race. And it was kind of given to him. So
that's 10 points that in the championship that
crazy.
You can't give up to that guy right now.
No, not at all. And that's why I think that's Kevin Lee's point. That's why he was so pissed.
Yeah.
Well, one thing with the gap, is that helpful for teams to get out there and you run your car? I know they have set up and practice like crazy prior to the season, but is it an advantage to get out there for the teams that there's a little bit of a break? You get out there and you have your run, then you got a couple of weeks to work out some things before you head to the West Coast.
Yeah, I think you just highlighted a really interesting concern that I have with the schedule, Keith, and thanks for bringing that up. Is, when we get to the end of May through, even the month of May through August, we're racing pretty much every weekend somewhere, but here in March and April, it's race, take 2 weeks off, race, take 2 weeks off, that. So I don't know. I don't know how that works for teams. And I don't get the feeling, as I listen to like Rossi and Hinch talk about it, that they're big favorites of that type of schedule. But I know from a fan perspective, it's tough, especially if you're trying to attract new viewership.
Yeah, no, they're testing Sebring, and not everybody tested, but remember these teams only have 5 engines, right? 5 engines that you're allotted through the season. Guess who's already went through one? Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon's already used one. Typically, all teams will go through all 5. So he's already down an engine. He did this during testing. So that's something else in the back of teams' minds of, do we want to test all these places? But I mean, we only have certain amount of miles that we're putting on these engines, and Dixon's already down one. He's surely going to get into that 6th, if not 7th engine, if something else does go bad.
That's a good point. That's
something else to think about. I mean, running all these practices and not practices, but test sessions and stuff like that. It all adds up.
But you're right, Keith. What you said that, like the guys were just at Barber this week doing a test for what's coming up in the first weekend of May. Well, no, they tested Sebring before the season, but they just tested Barber this week.
Barber, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So, but it does. You're right. It does give them some early season testing. I wish there was a way that Fox or IndyCar could promote that testing better, so that fans could, because we see that because we pay attention, But to the casual fan, are those of you that are casual fans out there, are you paying attention to what's going on in testing and know the guys are on track, or you think they're off? They're taking a nap for the next 3 weeks. Between
nobody knows they're testing. Nobody knows they're testing. Nobody.
I say the best way to get that kind of news and information for me was following a lot of socials, like following teams, following racers, because they do post a lot of content from the places that they're at and what's going on those days. And I think that's a pretty interesting way to try to keep up, fill in the gaps. Some of the teams even do some educational pieces, kind of like we're doing here. And I always find that pretty interesting. So, definitely if you're interested in getting more involved, getting more information, get on Instagram, get on X, and follow their social media accounts, because they'll show you a lot. And there's a lot of behind the scene access.
It's huge. I think one of the biggest things we need to discuss is the announcement of Dallas, talking about schedules. Huge. I mean, we're a 17 race schedule right now. So IndyCar obviously hasn't announced if it's going to be 18 next season. I wouldn't be surprised either way. But it will be, I think they said 13th through 15th type of thing of 2026. So second week.
Yeah, it's this week. I mean, basically this week, like the same weekend that we're looking at now, right?
So huge news. I mean, we all knew it was coming. We didn't know when. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones. I mean, so it's going to be a downtown, pretty big party. I mean, I think.
And some of the renderings of the track are pretty neat, and being tied into AT&T Stadium there, and looks like there's a lot of good for a street course. More opportunity maybe to have fans, have them bleachers set up in areas. I think it could be a pretty interesting setup. And then how does a double pit work?
Oh, we saw that. We saw that last year in Detroit. It can be disastrous.
It's interesting, but I think the biggest thing is we're not missing a week of racing. It's filling a void there. I get every other week maybe, but
we don't know that though, right? Because we don't know.
That's true. St. Pete's,
are they gonna? Let's say St. Pete stays where it is. I think that's probably contractual, pretty solid. It's going to be the last weekend of February, 1st of March.
Right.
But if this thermal thing doesn't go well this year, does Dallas become the replacement for thermal? Or do they take an Iowa race? And we've talked about how partial we are to that doubleheader in Iowa. Do they take one of those away?
And you're right. You're probably right.
As much as I love the doubleheader in Iowa, I would love to fill a weekend at the beginning of the season even more. So I'd be willing to give up that weekend in Iowa, that second race in Iowa for this Dallas race.
Yeah. They need to put 2 in Milwaukee is what they really need to do. 2 in Milwaukee, it's a little bit closer, and the racing was way better.
Yeah, I mean, I like an 18 race schedule.
And you get to see cheap you get to see Cheap Trick, right?
Is Cheap Trick there this year?
I mean, that's who it was last year.
Oh, it was Quiet Riot.
Quiet Riot. Damn it.
Bang your head back.
Oh, front row at Quiet Riot. Those are the best. No, that's what I see. I mean, Dallas is huge. And then, let's see what falls in line.
Yeah. I was just going to go back to Dallas. We kind of started off this episode talking about, IndyCar being the fastest kind of racing, fastest racing on earth. Like the piece of Dallas with that street course that it gives is that straightaway where they're going to get up to 180 miles per hour on a straightaway on a street course. That is exciting. And for new fans that are going to be joining in that Dallas metro area, like how cool to see those cars come flying by them at those speeds. We see it at Indy, but that's really the only other place that you see that type of speed.
They'll promote it really well. That's the key with the Nashville when it was downtown and at Dallas. They'll promote it really well, and it'll get some fans there too.
Yeah. And the population density there as well is going to have a bigger physical presence at the race. I mean, St. Pete is a destination, but as a city, it's not a very big city. So, being able to be there in Arlington officially, I guess, but that whole area is just packed full of people. And
they're all used to it.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
What else is on your minds today? I know, Keith, we probably are getting up against our time limit, aren't we?
I think the last thing, a bit of news that came out was maybe a popular guy coming back to the 500 again.
Taku.
He's surrender.
I think I heard he's will be the oldest in the field, older than Helio. I mean, the guy knows how to whip it around there.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to that is he's coming back with RLL, and we know how RLL has really struggled the last few years at Indy. But when he came back last year, the rest of them are worried about making the race, and he's battling for, the Fast 9 in qualifying. So, that guy can wheel it, man. He's as good as it gets around that place. And so it'd be cool and he's such a good promoter. You go back to, he won his first 517, right? He won 17 and 20.
Yep.
And I remember the victory banquet in 17. Like the amount of English he spoke was so minimal. And now he's really become an American and become an IndyCar driver and loves the sport and loves what this country and what has provided for him. And so what an effort he's made, not just as a driver, but as a person to do what he's done. He's so fun, so personable.
He deserves it. Yeah. He's still good.
Yeah.
I mean, could you put Marco? Does he still? I mean, Taku could still run. Helio, I think, can still run. TK maybe could probably. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I get it. Like, they're weaning out and they're dying off. But I mean, Taco is probably the one that deserves it the most out of those old timers, in my opinion.
So does that put it? I was trying to figure this out. Does that put us at 33 entries now? Have you guys heard?
I think we're over. I'm pretty sure we're over.
Okay, I could only count 33 the other day when I was going through it. So I must be missing somebody.
I haven't thought of it, since Kevin and Kurt. Well, that was a month ago. They acted like they had a lot. They probably had 34, 35 type of thing.
I would love to see 35. That's the number I would love to see.
Get Catherine Legg in there.
Maybe I can get a picture.
Can Dale add another car and put Catherine in, you think?
I think we're at least at 34. So,
I mean, will Ganassi throw a fourth car in there?
I mean, probably.
Put Bourdais in it, maybe? We heard at one point about Jimmy Johnson and Tom Brady throwing something together with Bourdais. So that'd be the next one we're waiting on, I guess.
Yep.
You get an RC Enerson in there or a Sage Karam.
We can do it all. I mean, maybe it would be nice to have 35. on pole day for sure. We'll keep you updated on that,
All right.
folks.
Well, I think that brings us to the conclusion of episode 7. Again, we got our IndyCar 101. We're going to continue on with this. So in the future, we're going to talk about a lot of different things: tires, push to pass. What's the pit, the workings of the pit, and what the engineers are doing during races. And so we're going to get a little behind the scenes and talk about the X's and O's. So we'll bring that to you in the future.
Thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing before we go. I just thought about it. I heard this week some of the things the complaints we had about Fox's broadcast. You see, they're changing those, so they're going to add more graphics and more more of those pieces that we missed. So sorry, I just thought of that as we were getting ready to sign off. So.
It sounds like it was just not everything was ready. Type of thing.
Yeah. So,
I'm glad they called me and got our input. So I'm glad they're listening.
Listen to our podcast.
Cool. Thank you all for listening. Again, comments, questions, concerns, topics. Hell, if you want to sit right beside me, come sit right here.
Hey, and episode 8, the episode's going to drop on Wednesday. We're back to pre-race podcasting. So we're getting this race week. So we're getting excited for that. We'll be geared up for another episode. Thanks for joining us at Checkered Shorts.